Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Steel based on novel. So let's start. Throughout the history of the Temple Union, never had there been an important members past presented so clearly before the common people. Not only did the message before the film interest the common people and draw them into the story, it also made them feel respect. In that moment, all of their eyes were glued to the magical crystal screens. This was the first time they had learnt that the bright glimmer of hope that had performed brilliantly in the temple's great gathering had once penetrated into the demons and destroyed 2 demon god pillars, even audaciously venturing to Modu and planning to kill the star demon god. It even took the demon god emperor to mobilize the 3 most powerful clans among the demons to deal with them. What would the magic film show? As everyone waited curiously, the film began to play. The 10 magical crystal screens basically lit up with dazzling light at the same time. The resplendent gold light shocked everyone watching. The golden light gradually subsided and the first thing they saw was a small forest. A soft discussion immediately rose. Look, isn't that the demon hunters of the bright glimmer of hope? That's Vice Chairwoman Kia. Look, it's Vice Chairman Chen Yinga. She's currently an auxiliary head of the spiritual temple. Look at that baldy. His Sima's Yan, the most powerful disciplined priest in the history of the priest temple. I still like that mage more. The phoenix technique he used during the temple's great gathering was just too awesome. Everyone's voices was drowned out by the sound of the film. Chen Yinga sobbed painfully in the film as everyone surrounded Long Haochen, who lay on the ground. Kia gently crouched down and looked at a blue ring on her finger. She gently took off the ring and lifted up Long Haochen's left hand, putting it on his ring finger. You dummy. Why did you return it to me? It already belongs to you forever, just like me heart. Kia spoke very softly, but after being magnified by the film, everyone could hear it clearly. They immediately sensed the deep sorrow in Kia's voice. Her feeling of despair immediately tugged on everyone's heartstrings, such that their discussions immediately stopped. They all watched the film quietly. Kia raised her hand and slowly took off the eternal melody pendant from his neck. A golden skull stood out on the screen. When Kia hung the eternal melody around her neck, everyone thought of the same question. What was that? Let's go, Kia said. Afterwards, everyone became bedazzled. Dense, golden light appeared on the eternal melody, enveloping everyone. In the next moment, as the golden light rose, the film immediately became blurry. With a series of distortions, they moved to a different place. At this moment, a voiceover appeared. They were teleported to another realm, to a world within a divine tool. The golden skull was called the eternal melody, the key to opening the divine tool. The creator of the divine tool was. The voiceover ended there and the scene cleared up once more. Kia said frantically, "Come out, hurry up. Just come out." A green light silently emerged from Long Haochen's golden foundation armor. The green light seemed very weak, almost like a wisp of smoke. A weak voice rang out of the wisp of light as well, "He is already dead. So my pact with him is gradually dissipating. All I can do is to keep his soul maintained for 7 days. But it also means that you have only the time of 7 days. There is only one chance, and it lies in this Tower of Eternity. You must succeed as this tower's successor, and rely on the profound mysteries of light necromancy to possibly restore his soul and reforge his heart. If he manages to resurrect, my contract in him will reinstate as well, but otherwise, 7 days later his soul will scatter, and be confined in this Tower of Eternity, bound for all eternity. So if you cannot resurrect him within 7 days, just bring him out from here, at least that way his soul won't have to keep suffering here." As the voice stopped at this point, the green wisps disappeared. That voice is, Wang Yuan blankly said. I know. It's that girl from the illusory paradise. No mistake, that's her. Lin Xin bounced wildly. Grabbing Lin Xin's shoulder, Han Yu excitingly shouted, "Yes, yes. Yi Xiaolei. It's her. She has some kind of contract relationship with Captain, and is the one who came to our aid. So Captain has some hope of revival." There's hope. What shocked the audience the most was how Han Yu said there was hope in reviving their captain. He was already dead, so how was he supposed to be revived? And what was the profound mysteries of light necromancy? What repairing his heart? What inheritance of the Tower of Eternity? All of these mysteries confused the audience slightly. Does anyone has a rope or a chain? Kia's call roused everyone from their pondering. Afterwards, they saw Kia lift Long Houchen's corpse onto her back with the assistance of her companions, tying him down with a chain. When they saw this, a lot of people felt like there was something lodged in their throat. Even though a lot of people knew the demon hunt squads had done a lot for the Union, they only truly understood just how brutal the experiences that the demon hunters had to go through when they saw this film. 7 days. We only have a time of 7 days. In this time, we must climb to the top of the Tower of Eternity and obtain the inheritance of the Holy Necromancer, slumbering Calamity Elux. Kia's voice rang out in the film, and this name became embedded in the audience's minds. The Holy Necromancer, slumbering Calamity Elux. What kind of existence was he? Before the audience had enough time to wonder about it, the scene changed again. Kia had begun to lead the bright glimmer of hope to the Tower of Eternity to challenge it. There, the story and matters depicted in the film were slightly changed. In order to immerse the audience better, the trials began on the first floor. The 12 powerful holy guards appeared before them. The demon hunters fell one by one. As they watched them sacrifice themselves to pave a path to Long Houchen's revival, tears began to pool up in the audience's eyes. In order to revive their captain, in order to revive Chairman Long Houchen, every single demon hunter from the bright glimmer of hope had given them all. The object that common people treated with most importance, life, had been offered up by them selflessly. Sima Xian fell, Chen Yinga fell, and Wang Yuan fell. No matter how they fell, their eyes would be filled with persistence and hope. The bright glimmer of hope climbed up the Tower of Eternity, a floor at the time, as the audience sat at the edge of the seat. Many of them had even dampened their clothes with tears unknowingly. However, they held their breaths, even unwilling to produce a single sound of weeping, afraid of missing even just a moment of the film. On the 6th floor of the Tower of Eternity, only Kia continued fighting. She lifted the sickle of the god of death in her hand high up into the air, and faced the most difficult trial. Lin Xin's voice became the voiceover. The vice-captain is using the power of the 7 arts of the god of death. Each art will make her lose one emotion. The simple voiceover brought even more shock to the audience. Following that was Cai's unhesitant battle. The first art, death in childhood. The second art, death in purification. The third art, death scream. The fourth art, death god's kiss. The fifth art, death's silent annihilation. The sixth art, death in journey. The audience witnessed the definition of strength. When Kia used the 6th art of the 7 arts of the god of death to finally defeat her opponent, a tremendous wave of cheers rang out from the crowd. There were even tears of joy. However, they failed to realize that this was just a start to their tears. 6-colored light appeared, tending to the wounds of the bright glimmer of hope. As their condition took a turn for the better, pulling some of them back from the jaws of death, as a matter of fact, the crowd nervousness was overcome by great relief and ease. Did it finally end? Were they finally going to revive Chairman Long Houchen? Afterwards, an even brutal scene appeared. The path to the sky. Kowtow after each step on the aerial passage. The voiceover, on the path to the sky, all powers were suppressed. Vice Chairwoman Kia was reduced to the powers of an ordinary girl. The introduction was very simple, but it immediately allowed the audience to understand just what pressure Kia was experiencing. Kia advanced at an extremely steady pace. With each step, she would kneel down, kowtow and rise, before taking another step, kneeling down. This continued repetitively. The audience began to see sweat and gradually, they saw blood. 2 trails of blood began to appear on the endless path to the sky, which deepened as they went. Gradually, a 3rd trail of blood appeared as well from Kia's forehead. The audience were ordinary people after all. Their feelings were much more tender than demon hunters. Even the bright glimmer of hope had cried at this sight, so the audience immediately broke into a sea of weeping. Many people cried painfully as they struggled to compose themselves. 50 stairs, 60 stairs, 70 stairs, 80 stairs. Those stairs were painful, and she had to staggeringly go on. Her body was already close to collapse, and the blood trails left on the ground started to form a puddle at the bottom of the stairs. In the film, the Kia still kept going on, climbing without rest, despite close to collapsing. A deep force of incomparable scale seemed to be supporting her gradually weakening body. Bam! On the 112th stair, Kia suddenly fell down, violently smashing the stairs on the ground. But her right arm still grasped the smooth surface of the stairs, with the tips of her toes supporting herself on a step lower down, so that she wouldn't slip down. Blood covered the whole hem of her skirt, and as her tiptoes slided along the way, Kia's face of originally extreme beauty had already become full of blood. Because her body was far too burdened, it was shaking violently. Only her eyes and look remained firm, resolute. With a violent gasp for breath, she barely managed to shift position to another stare, and kowtow once again in a bang. "Don't continue." In the crowd, someone had called out, and immediately, everyone began to call that out together. She climbed, she fainted. She climbed some more, she fainted some more. Kia collapsed time after time, and climbed many again and again. When she had made it onto the 200th stair, she was already entirely covered in blood. This was already her 7th time falling unconscious on the path to the sky. Kia's knees were already devoid of the slightest skin and flesh, her deep white bones already coming to sight. She was unaware that her fair white bone contorted all the time, and because of the excessive blood loss, her whole body was morbidly pale. Her life was fading away at an astonishing speed, yet no end of the path to the sky came to sight. From the film, Kia's shape had been firmly embedded in the minds of the entire audience like concrete. The voiceover appeared once more. Vice Chairwoman Kia fainted a total of 7 times, as she climbed the path to the sky over several days. The film has compressed this time. The audience's emotions could no longer be described with a simple word like shock. Some of the more frail females in the audience had even fainted from all the crying. Even the soldiers of the union responsible for maintaining order choked on their sobs. This was the first time they learnt that the will of humans could be this tough. This was also the first time they had truly witnessed what the demon hunters had gone through. Just when the audience was about to collapse from their emotional burden, a gate of light finally appeared on the path to the sky. When Kia used her entire strength to finally enter the gate of light, the entire audience choked back their sobs and cheered out. The beautiful 7th floor of the Tower of Eternity appeared, and so did the coffin in which Elux slumbered. Indeed, to ordinary people, they possessed a powerful, natural fear of the undead. However, after the emotional upheaval earlier, they were no longer as shocked when they saw Elux in his undead form. Elux said that he needed a beating heart to revive Long Houchen. When Kia reversed her sickle of the god of death, and stabbed it towards her own chest, screams had almost filled the entire city. When Elux said to Kia that he wanted to test Long Houchen, basically the entire crowd supported him, because they all had strong doubts towards Long Houchen. Did their chairman deserve everything that Kia had done for him? Having awakened, Long Houchen faced Elux's test. When he said that he was willing to relinquish his beliefs to save Kia, the whole audience surged. They finally understood that Kia was not the only one who was honest to his feelings. Their chairman was willing to give up on his beliefs, something even more precious than his life, for his most beloved. In that moment, Kia and Long Houchen's status rose to an indescribable height in their minds. Were beliefs, undead and so on, still important anymore? No, before true love, it seemed everything was insignificant. Especially when Elux uttered "You win," a cheer erupted among the entire audience once more. It had to be mentioned that the effects of the magic film had completely exceeded the original expectations of the person who suggested this in the first place, Mage Temple head Li Jingji. It had also exceeded the imaginations of everyone who supported this idea. The audience had almost gone crazy from the magic film. They chanted Long Houchen and Kia's names to release their emotions. With the groundwork complete, it was much easier for the audience to accept Elux's story. Elux's sorrowful experiences, as well as his understanding in the end from Long Houchen and Kia, and his self-purification, shocked the audience deeply. The film ended on Elux's lofty words, "Holding all lives, plucking all stars, the world without someone like me." Now, they were gradually getting deeper into the night. However, no one left. After a moment of silence and peace, Long Houchen, Kia, and the bright glimmer of hope became what they chanted. That was a sleepless night in the holy city. The southern mountain pass. It was currently noon, as well as the time for lunch. In an inconspicuous inn, the lively conversation made it extremely noisy. "Are you going tonight again?" "Now I can't. I can't go." A girl shook her head firmly and turned down the suggestion of the man who shared the same table as her. "Why not? It'll only be broadcasted for 10 days. You won't be able to see it afterwards." "I can't go anymore. If I go again, I'll end up crying myself blind. Vice Chairman Kia is just too pitiful. The demons are just too despicable. If it weren't for my poor aptitude, I'd join the army as well and go kill the enemies on the battlefield." Sigh, exactly right. Let alone a girl like you, even a man like me would cry every time I see it. It's just too touching. No wonder the chairman and vice chairwoman can possess such a cultivation at such a young age. The difficulties they have gone through is something we can never imagine. Exactly. That slumbering calamity Elux is pretty pitiful as well. Who would have thought that such a powerful necromancer like him had been forced into his state all because of reality? Yeah, who's without fault? And didn't he repent in the end? And he was purified by Vice Chairwoman Kia. I only knew after watching the film that undead can think for themselves and are intelligent. They don't just thrive off slaughter. Similar conversations basically filled the streets of the entire Southern Mountain Pass. It was not just the Southern Mountain Pass. The magic film had been broadcasted in the Holy City and 6 great forts as well. The other cities further in were still waiting for their magic crystal screens to be delivered. After all, there were not a lot of magic crystal crens. There were only a few cities who could set them up. After the first wave of screenings in the Holy City and the 6 great forts, the magic crystal screens were dismantled and transported to other cities further inland. Throughout the history of the Temple Union, or perhaps the history of all humans, there had never been a matter with such a great influence. Spreading under the word of mouth, not only did Kia and Long Houchen gradually become exemplar that everyone looked up to, they were close to becoming a kind of belief. It had gotten so bad that after a discussion between Long Houchen and the members of the Union, they had decided to stop the film from being played in the Union. However, the experiences of him, Kia and the bright glimmer of hope would continue to influence several generations of the Union. Just when Long Houchen and Kia had become people that everyone looked up to, they had instead arrived at the Night's Sacred Mountains under the accompaniment of Yang Hao Han. This was already the 3rd time Long Houchen had come to the Night's Sacred Mountain. He held very deep feelings for this holy land of the Knights. The first time he had come here, he left with Hao Yue. The second time he had come here, he left with Star King. After over a decade, he had gone from an ignorant boy to the chairman of the Union. He had gone through a lot, given up a lot and gained a lot as well. When they were around 1,000 meters away from the mist that enveloped the Night's Sacred Mountain, the dense aura of light there began to churn. Faint, golden mist actually drifted towards the 3 of them uncontrollably. Long Houchen experienced a deep feeling of intimacy. The light element in the faint, golden mist rushed to him like a child had found its home. Raising his left hand, Long Houchen smiled slightly. The gentle light element began to revolve around him automatically. Throughout the entire process, he did not release any of his own power. It had all happened naturally. Yang Haohan, who also happened to be a powerhouse of the light and a divine knight, could not help but sigh in amazement at this sight. Long Houchen really did cultivate his light element spiritual energy to the limit. Even the light element treated him as a source of power. Long Houchen suddenly raised his head and gazed into the depth of the mist. Immediately, the mist parted automatically like soldiers who had just received an order, forming a path. 3 disabled old men quickly arrived where they were. The 3 old men were immediately surprised at the shock of the parting mist. This was the first time they had witnessed something like that. However, when they saw Yang Haohan, they relaxed. To their greater surprise, the person who had influenced the mist of the mountain was not the divine knight of defense and planning. Instead, it was the young man by his side. The Night's Sacred Mountain was basically cut off from the rest of the world. Although some of the elders here had seen Long Houchen before, it was only a small number of them. At the very least, it was the first time these 3 had seen him. Greetings, Temple Head Yang. The 3 elders approached them and performed a standard knight's salute to Yang Haohan. Yang Haohan and Long Houchen returned their gesture with the same salute at the same time. I must bother the elders. Please take us to the sealed cavern. As Yang Haohan said that, he took out an insignia. The insignia in his hand was completely sculpted from golden crystal. There were several inscriptions in the ancient Elvish language. Upon seeing the insignia, the elders bowed once more, before walking up and surrounding Long Houchen, Yang Haohan and Kia. They each took out a golden insignia as well. Golden light flickered as each insignia released 6 symbols upon being activated by the elders. A total of 18 symbols appeared from the 3 insignia, revolving around everyone. They shone with blinding light. Afterwards, a huge, golden swirl enveloped all 6 of them. The mist in the surroundings churned violently and in the next moment, they vanished. The current Long Houchen was no longer the same as the past. He could sense an extremely large magic array within the knight's sacred mountain. It was possible to say that the entire mountain was created because of the magic array. The only way to understand the secrets here was to be familiar with the magic array, or have someone serve as a guide. The golden light subsided and they had appeared in another place. It was also a place that gave Long Houchen a sense of déjà vu. They were inside of a cavern, and in its walls, blocks of precious stones were inlaid. An insipid golden light illuminated the entire cavern. Inside the cavern, the light element was not strong. It could not be compared to the knight's sacred mountain at all. It was just a little stronger than outside at most. This cavern was enormous. The roof was 60 meters high, the cave had an irregular circular shape as far as the eye could see, and its diameter was at least 300 meters long, just like a sort of enormous public square. There were quadrilateral shapes on the ground. These shapes were closely linked with each other, forming a huge rings, which grew closer towards the center. Each shape was covered with dim, ancient Elvish language. Seeing this, Long Houchen finally remembered where this place was. Wasn't this the cavern where he had been teleported away through an array, which allowed him to find house? He had never thought he would come back here again. Yang Haohan nodded at the three elders. Thank you for leading the way. Please return to your posts. The elders performed a salute towards Yang Haohan. Yang Haohan arrived before Long Houchen and said, Houchen, the sealed cavern can only let in a single person at a time. Kia and I will remain here waiting for you. These seniors possess extremely rich experiences, and they have also slumbered there for several millennia, so they might be rather strange. You must be careful with what you do. Just in case the situation develops beyond your control, use spiritual energy to activate the insignia in your hand. You will be automatically transported back here. As he said that, he passed the insignia sculpted from golden crystal to Long Houchen. Long Houchen accepted the insignia and nodded at Yang Haohan. Afterwards, he made his way to the center of the cavern. There was a ring around 9 meters wide. The symbol in the center was the largest. However, as soon as he began making his way over, he was stopped by the three elders who had led them here. One of the elders said to Yang Haohan rather hesitantly, Temple Head Yang, that does seem to abide by the rules. Only you can enter the sealed cavern. You're. Yang Haohan smiled, I forgot to introduce him to you. This is Long Houchen, a new divine knight of our Knight Temple. He obtained the recognition of the divine throne of eternity and creation, and was bestowed the title of Divine Knight of Glory and Leadership by the Temple. He is also the leader of our 6 divine knights. In the future, the sacred mountain insignia will be in his possession. The 3 elders became shocked at the same time. They immediately began to look at Long Houchen differently. They were all old members of the Knight Temple, so of course they knew what the divine throne of eternity and creation meant. Long Houchen knew the 3 elders were still in some disbelief. With a smile, a gentle spiritual energy emerged from his body and enveloped the 3 elders. The pure light element made the 3 elders all shudder. In the next moment, an indescribably nice feeling filled every inch of their body. Even their missing limbs experienced the same sensation, albeit missing. Their spiritual energy all surged out, and in just a few seconds, their spiritual energy had grown by an amount that was even more than what they would achieve with several months of cultivation. Now, the elders no longer had any doubts. Although they were still filled with shock, they moved out of the way with a flash and saluted Long Houchen politely. Long Houchen arrived in the center of the huge symbol with the sacred mountain insignia. He closed his eyes slowly as he quietly sensed everything in the surroundings. In the moment he had closed his eyes, his mental force immediately expanded. Whether it was Yang Haohan, Kia or the 3 elders, they all felt that their consciousness blurred out momentarily. This time, even Yang Haohan could not help but show shock. What a powerful mental force. Even if it was Demon God Emperor, it was impossible for him to understand the interior of the sacred mountains within the great array of the Knight's sacred mountain. The great array contained extremely powerful light element, as well as the secrets of countless other arrays. Many of these secrets originated from the ancient elves. Even the Knight Temple, that was directly in control of the Knight's sacred mountain, did not completely understand the secrets of the great array. However, Long Houchen's mental force met no obstruction at all as he stood there. In just a short while, he had enveloped the entire mountain. As the person in possession of the light god physique and light god domain, how could any light element array reject him? It was just like a girl who had opened her heart up completely, allowing him to study it as he wished. Very soon, Long Houchen felt like he knew everything he wanted to know. After studying it, Long Houchen discovered that the Night's Sacred Mountain itself was composed of 9 light element arrays, which were broken up into a central array, and 8 outer arrays. The 9 arrays then formed a completely new array. The arrays had been cast down with such complexity that he had never seen anything like this before. And the array had an extremely powerful restricting ability. Even if powerhouses of the 9th step intruded this place, they would probably suffer greatly at the hands of the array. There were many light element magical beasts that lived on the Night's Sacred Mountain. They were also the source of mounts for young knights of the temple. However, the true secrets of the mountain lay in its interior. The location where he currently stood was the fundamental point of the central formation among the 9 formations. Controlling the Great Array had to be done here, while the Sacred Mountain insignia in his hand was the key to unlocking the array's full power, or to open up the array. Raising the insignia over his head, Long Houchen slowly poured spiritual energy into it. As soon as pure, light element spiritual energy had entered the insignia, it immediately shone brightly with golden light. The insignia seemed to produce a faint hum, and afterwards, the 9 arrays in the mountain actually all responded. A golden ripple expanded below Long Houchen, lighting up the ancient elvish symbols. In just a few seconds, all of the ancient elvish symbols in the center of the mountain had lit up. The symbols all seemed to be revived. As golden light began to flow, some of the rings of golden symbols rotated clockwise, while others rotated anticlockwise. Golden symbols began to appear in the air as well, around the Sacred Mountain insignia in Long Houchen's hand. Yang Haohan had told Long Houchen before they arrived here that once he had activated the Sacred Mountain insignia, he would be able to sense the sealed cavern. Now, Long Houchen could vividly sense that the Sacred Mountain insignia had offered him several different auras. One was to activate defenses, one was to activate attacks, and the last one was the way to the sealed cavern. With a thought, the insignia activated and a powerful beam of light suddenly erupted from below Long Houchen, connecting with the ceiling. Long Houchen was completely enveloped by the beam of light. The light element was so dense that it was almost tangible. Even Caia, who possessed powers of purification, felt a sense of sluggishness that almost immobilized her. Not only did activating the array of the Night's Sacred Mountain require the Sacred Mountain insignia, it also required sufficiently strong abilities of the light element. If it was any other element, they would all fail. If a darkness element powerhouse had managed to steal the Sacred Mountain insignia, and had made it in here, then there would only be 2 outcomes. The first one would be if they were powerful enough, such that they could break out of the array and leave. The second outcome was much more likely, which was being torn apart by the light element. The beam of light lasted for half a minute before slowly vanishing. When the beam of light subsided, Long Houchen had vanished. Surrounded by dense light element, he traveled a very short distance through space. Through the investigations Long Houchen had performed earlier, he already knew the exact location of the sealed cavern. However, the location had been completely suppressed by the array of the Night's Sacred Mountain. Even with his current level of cultivation, he had no confidence in breaking into there without the Sacred Mountain insignia. This was below the Night's Sacred Mountain. The golden light in the surroundings gradually dispersed. The first thing that Long Houchen felt was a chill. He could feel the coldness even with his cultivation, which demonstrated just how powerful the coldness was. It was definitely not just a matter of temperature. Everything in the surroundings cleared up. Appearing before Long Houchen was a corridor paved with grey rock. The surroundings were pitch black, but Long Houchen personally shone with a faint golden light, enough to illuminate several meters away. The air in the corridor was extremely foul, while the coldness surged over from up ahead. Long Houchen raised a hand and a gentle, white flame immediately appeared. With a gentle flick of his finger, a white flame flew ahead. It was not particularly large, but wherever it went, it burned away the foulness in the air. It was not important whether the air was breathable or not. He just disliked this foulness. At the same time, he could see the situation up ahead clearly under the illumination of the white flame. The corridor slowly extended downwards, so the white flame directly landed on the wall up ahead. It was not extinguished, and instead burned on the wall like a lantern. However, it did not burn the grey rock bricks. Under the light from the flames, Long Houchen made his way forward. The Sacred Mountain insignia in his hand shone with a faint golden light, which served as a source of light to a certain degree. The corridor was longer than Long Houchen had expected it to be. The deeper he traveled, the more obvious the coldness became, to the point where he needed to activate his spiritual energy to protect himself. A warm aura expanded from his chest. Warmth, coupled with the aura of life, filled his entire body. It only circulated through his body once, and Long Houchen could no longer sense the coldness anymore. He could not help but smile. This was Yi Xiaolei's power. Ever since Yi Xiaolei had fused with him and become his intelligent spiritual stove, she had been sleeping. However, Long Houchen could clearly sense the changes to his body after fusing with Yi Xiaolei. When he sensed that a brand new heart had grown under the power of the Heart of Eternity, he suddenly realized that the original Heart of Eternity had not truly revived him. Perhaps, the Heart of Eternity could continually sustain his life, but without a heart, he was not a real human. From a certain perspective, he was no different from being an undead, just a special undead with the light god domain. However, after his heart had regrown, Long Houchen could clearly sense that Yi Xiaolei's power had fused perfectly with the Heart of Eternity. Not only did he possess a new heart now, it was much more powerful than before as well. However, what he found strange was that his heart had evolved, but the boost to his spiritual energy from his Heart of Eternity had vanished. His internal spiritual energy was around 500 to 600,000, but that did not include the 90,000 that came from the Heart of Eternity. The coldness did not affect him, so Long Houchen sped up his pace. Indeed, he never treated the Eternal Heroes as a threat in the first place, not only because of his trust in them, but due to his self-confidence as well. With his current cultivation, the divine throne of eternity and creation and Hao Yue, he had complete confidence in himself even when he faced against the demon god emperor. After walking for almost 300 meters, he finally arrived at the end of the corridor. An arched gate appeared before Long Houchen. The gate had two panels, with many people sculpted on them. At a closer glance, it seemed like the battle between the humans and demons back then, while two simple words were written on the gate. They were Eternal Heroes. Many of the markings on the stone gate had already become mottled, which showed its age. Despite the quality of the material, the passage of time still left behind a clear trace. In order to protect the Alliance, these Eternal Heroes had slumbered here for 6,000 years. Even if they spent most of their time asleep, there would always be times when they awoke. They had to endure the darkness and loneliness here. Compared to them were his contributions of any significance. When he thought up to there, Long Houchen could not help but bow deeply towards the words written on the stone door. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind that no matter how difficult it was, he had to rectify the existence of these 63 Eternal Heroes. Upon standing up straight once more, he slowly lodged the sacred mountain insignia into the only depression in the stone gate. It fit perfectly. He could not help but admire the craftsmanship of the person who made all of this. A long, crisp sound rang out, just like someone had struck a bottle made out of magic crystal. The pleasant sound echoed through the corridor, as a strange feeling cleared Long Houchen's head. Afterwards, the gate began to shine with a deep, green light. Only the sacred mountain insignia remained golden. The gate slowly slid apart to the two sides. The stone gate was probably a meter thick. It had already existed there for several thousand years, but it opened with such ease. Without a doubt, not only was the gate crafted with great skill, there were magic arrays engraved within as well. An aura at least 10 times colder than before surged forth, immediately colliding into Long Houchen's body. Surprisingly, the air inside was not foul at all. It was just extremely cold. The coldness even froze Long Houchen's breath. Before him was a pitch-black cavern. No matter how great Long Houchen's cultivation was, it was impossible for him to see anything in a completely pitch-black place without any source of light. However, he did not light up flame this time. Instead, he bowed politely and said, "The divine knight of glory and leadership, Long Houchen, of the Night Temple pays respects to the predecessor." He did not take a single step into the pitch-black cave. His voice was filled with respect from the bottom of his heart. His voice echoed in the cavern and corridor. Perhaps due to being too closely spaced, his voice echoed for quite some time. Long Houchen continued to bow. He showed no intention of changing his posture, maintaining it steadily and quietly. These seniors, who had laid down their lives for the Alliance, and then endured 6,000 years of loneliness, were definitely worthy enough for him to do that. "I'm very curious why a young man's come, but your two gestures of respect has given me a great impression of you." A rather strange voice appeared from the cavern. The voice seemed rather stiff. It would halt slightly every 2 or 3 words, which was why it seemed strange. Long Houchen slowly stood up straight and struck his left chest with his right first, performing the knight's salute once more. For the sake of the alliance, for the sake of mankind, the predecessors have done many things. It only makes sense for me to show respect. The stiff voice rang out once more. Did you just say you're the divine knight of glory of leadership? Where'd that kiddo called Yang Haohan go? He seems to be nearing 100 years in age. Has he died to the hands of the demons? If I recall correctly, he should be the divine knight of defense and planning. Long Houchen said, Temple head Yang isn't dead. He's just handed me the right to communicate with the seniors. The voice grew slightly more serious. Looks like something's happened to the alliance. It's the first time that a divine knight of glory and leadership has appeared for the Knight Temple, and there's a special case where our existence has been passed down without someone passing away. Tell me, why have you come this time? Hold on. Before you tell me, prove to me your status as a divine knight. From your brimming vitality, you should be in your prime. Has the Knight Temple gained a genius it's never seen before? Long Houchen said politely, Junior's name is Long Houchen. I will be 26 in 3 months' time. What I inherited is the power of the divine throne of eternity, and creation out of the 6 great divine thrones. What? The stiff voice suddenly became elated. Afterwards, Long Houchen felt a tremendous pressure. The pressure did not push him outwards. Instead, it pulled him in. However, Long Houchen remained standing there without moving at all. He did not even unleash his spiritual energy outside his body. Scrape, scrape. A strange sound rang out, and a green flame lit up near Long Houchen. The flame did not burn particularly brilliantly, but Long Houchen did find that it was rather difficult for his eyes to adjust now that light had suddenly appeared in this pitch-black place. The green fire had appeared in someone's hand. The person stood over 2 meters tall, and he was extremely skinny. His grey robes were tattered in many places, revealing his ashen skin. His eyes moved about stiffly as a grey light seemed to flash through them. He was not a human. More correctly, he should have been a zombie. However, his body was maintained very well, without any part rotting. He slowly approached Long Houchen. The scraping sound from before came from when he walked. His movements were very stiff, while his knees could no longer bend. As a result, he walked very slowly. However, Long Houchen could sense that this corpse was filled with an aura of danger. He had drawn this conclusion through his sense according to his cultivation. In terms of age, he remained the same when he had died as he had been turned into a corpse, so around 50 to 60 years old. He did not appear to be too old. Any other person would have probably begun to scream in fright if they came across a zombie in such a dark cavern. However, when Long Houchen saw him, he only showed even more respect. Hello, senior. Long Houchen bowed politely. Let me see the divine throne of eternity and creation, the zombie said excitedly. After a slight hesitation, Long Houchen said, Senior, this might not be the most appropriate place for me to do that. I'm afraid of affecting the slumber of the other seniors here. I might even end up having them. The light element hidden within the divine throne of eternity and creation was so powerful that once the supra-divine tool's powers were unleashed here, it would be highly likely that these eternal heroes would be harmed no matter how powerful they were. However, the zombie smiled instead. Young man, are you thinking your powers of light will harm us? Although I hate how I am right now very much, I just say that the necromancer, who created the scroll of spiritual transformation, is the greatest genius I know of. Not only did his scroll turn us info undead, it's retained the element of our powers when we were still alive. Do you think that as the founders of the 6 great temples, any of us would possess the darkness element? Long Houchen gained a new recognition of the holy necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux. No wonder the scroll of spiritual transformation was labeled as a supra-forbidden spell. If that's the case, please be careful, senior. Long Houchen took a few steps back and his eyes lit up first. A gentle, golden light appeared in his clear eyes. Afterwards, a holy aura filled with dignity immediately expanded from him. A huge silhouette of light appeared behind him, except in the narrow corridor. The silhouette of the divine throne of eternity and creation was unable to appear properly. Part 1 end here.